establishing a precedent for any other application. The Historic District Design Guidelines have been adopted by the Town of Sykesville in accordance with Article 6B, 8.06a of the Maryland Code and follow the recommendations of the United States Secretary of the Interior. The Sykesville Historic District Commission follows Robert's Rules of Order with the exception that the chairperson votes. So on tonight's agenda, we have quite a few items. The first is the meeting minutes from December 17th, 2025. You guys had an opportunity to review those minutes. Any questions or comments or altercations to those minutes? Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from December 17th, 2025.
Great. Second? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Second is, what did I say? Summary from February 25th, 2026.
Since we didn't have a quorum in February, it's not official minutes, it's just a summary of the meeting.
Okay.
So we can just, I guess, I don't know if we need a motion, but make a motion just to enter those into the record. They don't have to be approved.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to enter into the record the summary of the meeting held February 25th, 2026.
Okay, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. First application tonight. Can you bring that back up? Application number, Kevin?
Oh, I'm sorry. If you want to start with Pat, since he's here,
Sure.
he's still the third on the list, but...
Okay, what application number is that?
He is 2026-03.
Okay. Do you have anything to present on that application this evening?
Yes.
Do you want to read your statement, Kevin?
Yeah, I'll do a quick staff report. So the applicant's requesting HCC approval for several items at 7332 Springfield Avenue. One is replacement of the rear steps to include new stairs, a landing, and railing. And then the other is exterior repairs to the detached garage to include replacement of the wood or portion of the wood siding and installation of new garage doors. So regarding the new stairs and landing, the application shows an already completed project which replaced the previously existing rear stairs with a new porch structure containing stairs, a landing, and railings. The application did not provide information on the condition or materials of the old stairs or materials for the new structure, but pictures for the application appear to show that the stairs and landing are constructed of wood with plastic or PVC material for the railings or posts. And Pat, you feel free to clarify any of this when I'm finished as well. For the garage, the application shows the existing detached garage requires that some of the wood siding be replaced, and this will be done using like-kind materials to match what is currently existing. And then the applicant's also requesting approval to replace the existing wooden garage door with new aluminum doors with a wood textured finish. The attached photos and the estimate indicate that the doors will have decorative handles to give the illusion of swinging or sliding doors, but will use a traditional overhead motorized opening system. The application also describes some structural repairs to the inside of the garage, which do not require HCC approval. So, quick analysis. It's typically not recommended to add a new porch or deck to a contributing building, but the HCC guidelines say that it can be approved on a case-by-case basis so long as it doesn't take away from the original historic character of the building and is located in the rear or side elevation, not visible from a public right-of-way. Consideration of any new porch or deck should prioritize materials and details that align with the historic character of the building, including wood, natural materials, and colors. So the applicant may need to provide some additional information on the materials of the new structure so HDC can make an informed decision on its consistency with the guidelines. As for the garage, so as is typically the case, the guidelines for maintenance, alteration, or repair, replacement materials for accessory buildings are more restrictive for contributing buildings than for non-contributing within the historic district. There's not a whole lot in the guidelines for accessory buildings, but they do explain that historic accessory building character and features must be repaired or replaced in kind. The newly proposed garage doors appear to be in conflict with the requirement, but can still be considered by the HDC if sufficient justification for the replacement material is provided. So with that, HDC is being asked to determine if the newly constructed porch structure and repairs and alterations to the garage at 7332 Springfield Avenue are acceptable or provide alternative suggestions. Based on the guidelines and information provided in the application, Staff does have some questions regarding some of the materials being used or proposed and would suggest HGC request explanation or justification for the material choices prior to making a determination.
Okay, well, let's start with the first portion of the section is the stairs and railings on the back portion of the building. Open for conversation. And I think we need to address it in two different ways, the porch itself and then the railings as a separate line item itself.
Well, I can start, if that's okay.
Sure, yeah.
Apologies for doing it retroactively, but no disrespect intended, but I signed a tenant way sooner than I expected to. And she pleaded, so I didn't have any railings coming up the front and still don't up the front, and no railings out the back. And there never was, at least, you know, in the last 30 years, as far as I know. But she said she has an elderly father and she needed sturdy stairs to be able to let him come in the house. So with quick notice, you know, 1 week before she was taking occupancy, I had the carpenter rebuild those old stairs that were made out of wood. It was treated lumber probably. They were about 11 feet wide. They weren't balanced with anything. They were painted gray. They were ugly, and they had a big concrete pad underneath of it or in front of it. So that's treated lumber on the landing and the stairs, and it is and it's treated lumber on the post too, but they're covered with a sleeve, and then that's metal. The black is metal. That's aluminum, so it should last a very long time once we treat the stairs and the landing. And we could fancy up the landing a little bit, but basically this was built so that the lady could use the stairs with her father. The old one didn't have a landing there, and I was so tempted to build a deck, which would be beautiful back there. Maybe someday I'll be before this committee and ask for a deck, but I didn't really have the money for it, and I was just trying to meet the needs. In defense of, I don't even know if that's what materials somebody would have wanted me to use, but if I'd had the time, I would have come before you guys and asked for suggestions on the railings. But I think they're going to last a good long time, and I think they're going to look nice, and yeah, so that's what's up with that.
Okay.
And the awning is gone now, which you guys approved last time. We took that down. It's just this picture didn't have it down yet. And looks much better than ever.
Okay, thoughts, comments on the porch itself and railings?
Just orientation is, and I apologize, I looked at the pictures. Is this the back?
Yes. Yeah, you can't see any of that from any part of Springfield Avenue at all. I think even if I put a deck on there, I still don't think you would be able to see from Springfield Avenue.
I mean, you replaced lumber with lumber on the stairs itself. I think probably the big question is the railing, right? With the plastic coming into play. I know you said there's sleeves over top of the post, right?
Yeah.
But that's plastic coming across.
And I think the black is aluminum, if I had to guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I looked around the town, and the only other thing I saw that any of the older houses, you guys might know better, probably do, but I did look around the town for what somebody had. I mean, you could do treated lumber, you know, whatever that's called, the railing things.
Mm-hmm.
But then what would you do? Put a 2x6 at the top and get splinters on it and try to maintain that and have it buckle and bow, and it wouldn't even look as nice anyway. So I thought, the carpenter asked me, can I get it? It was available material. I said, yeah, let's do it. So I got the railings so that they can walk.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm with you. It's Matt, as far as, you know, the stairs and landing are certainly, you know, it's out of public view and all. I don't know about the sleeves, but I don't know what else is a better option right now. Cause if you go get the treated railings and stuff from Home Depot, that doesn't look,
That would look just as bad.
I think it arguably look worse.
Probably.
I think the biggest issue is the pickets.
But
It's just, you know, if you look at our guidelines, which we should be looking at, you know, and you look up railings, it talks about wrought iron railings or wood railings. And so, you know, we have neither here. So that's the question. And then, you know, we always talk about like gloss on items as well. And I know if we probably went up to them, they probably have a gloss, even though they're not presentable from the front road. The historic character of a contributing building has to be replaced in kind. I don't know what was there originally.
There was nothing. It was just steps, no
just,
railing,
just
nothing.
concrete steps.
No,
No,
wood
no.
steps.
Wood steps.
And I was over there once before Pat bought it. They were just, you know, they certainly weren't anything older. I think you've been over there a couple times. I don't know if you'd recall,
Many
Richard,
times.
but they weren't like what I would call historic steps that we have to worry that we took out.
I think the saving grace on it is a removable structure that could be taken off at any point, right? So it doesn't attach to the character of the building, so it is an accessory to the building.
Are you referring to the wooden pickets?
I think he's referring to all of it.
Oh. You're not just addressing the aluminum stair?
The PVC wraps on the columns and the
Yeah.
did he tie the landing into the house? You know? Is there a ledger going up against that house?
I don't know. I think it's on posts. I think it's on 4 posts. Well, an obvious question would be, one, do you really want to fiddle faddle with the back of people's houses? As a question to the commission, I understand it's a recent addition to your scope of work. At a glance from my backyard, as I look at 3 or 4 properties with a glance, including Richard's, yours looks pretty decent. We got aluminum siding, we got vinyl siding, we've got every little mix match of the next door neighbor house is a 1980 house that the beautiful big house got tore down because of the termite infestation, chemical problem. I can't even imagine what, in hindsight, if I would have, are we going to get to a point where I come to you and say, I need back steps, give me 5 options? Because other than that, it's just me pick and choose and throw it at you and then wait for some kind of response. I mean, I understand you guys want to keep the character of the important buildings, and this is probably one of them, and for sure the front and a couple of sides and all of that. But I mean, to even spend more than a minute or two thinking about what kind of railings, to me seems like a standard that I wouldn't want to set if I was sitting on this commission on the other side of the table. I wouldn't want to go down that road at all. But I mean, the amount of hodgepodge, like, I don't understand what from a practical standpoint. I have a house built in 1912 with a porch added sometime in the 20s or 30s with something else, laundry room added in the 40s or 50s, and I just don't even understand, where does somebody get a sense of, you know, beauty or congruency or whatever the terms are. This is all new to me, but you just need stairs. And what was
It would be material selection.
material selection?
You wouldn't find this plastic, you wouldn't find this kind of pickets within a home like this.
But what year though? What year were we trying to go back to?
Well, your house is 1912.
1912.
I mean, if you look at that picture, to us, and to me, maybe I don't want to speak for everyone, but it's hard to see that house having that step on it and making sense. But at the same time, I understand what you were trying to do with having a tenant who needs a safe stair while she's there.
Yeah.
But I don't see it going anywhere. And I think it does kind of change the look of it. Now, I understand your argument with the back of the house, but we kind of take the house as a whole when it comes to the exterior setting. I mean, I don't,
Yeah, based on a contributing building, and I know what you're saying, Pat, about, portions of the building are defined at different ages and periods, but we try to maintain the historic fabric of the original building itself. So if there is an addition added on,
Yeah,
that is part of our privy because it's attached to a historic, facade.
sure.
And so we're just trying to, make it homogeneous for the building and the period.
Yeah,
And so by adding a railing onto the outside that isn't homogeneous to the time period, it's kind of, if I came back and said, okay, we're just going to do plexiglass infill railings. You think it's crazy, but people do stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so that's what
Yeah.
we're trying to get away from is people just going to get chicken wire and putting it up and saying, well, that's all I had laying around. I'm
I
gonna put it
know,
up.
yeah.
So-
I understand it is I understand at some level and at some level I don't. And I think in this case, the shame of it is that I had to do, I'm coming before you retroactively.
Sure, yeah.
So I think it's terrible in that sense because everybody feels like they don't have a choice and, does anybody want to ask me to tear it down and does anybody want to help me pay for it at the same time? But I achieved my goal that I needed to do, and so I guess I'm asking for forgiveness. But I'm not opposed to trying to make it pretty, or prettier or nicer or more. Period. I'm not necessarily opposed to that and spending some money because I actually do care. I built the house so that I would enjoy living there myself, and I don't particularly like the shiny plastic. But it's gonna rough out a little bit in time. It's gonna.
I think what we could do is we could approve the porch and the railing itself, but we should put into the notes that, at any specific time when this starts to fail,
Mm-hmm.
that it's rebuilt in a historic manner that matches the facade, that it's the intended contributing factors of the HDC, because it's not a permanent installment.
I
It's
see.
not, the siding's not cut back for the railings to tie in.
Yeah.
It's on post, like you said, so.
when Pat comes back to ask for that
The
deck
deck?
on the back, we'll put that in the word.
If I move there, I'm asking for the deck.
Well, you'll know the first thing to go, Pat.
Well, I did ask the carpenter, I said, well, can you build the support so it wouldn't be wasted so that I could expand the deck in the future? And he goes, I'll try, but he didn't really know if he could or not.
Something that might help
Yeah.
just to tie it in is if you look around at other houses when they have any sort of a porch stairs like that
Right.
in our neighborhood, they typically have lattice work across the bottom. It's a little,
For the riser.
yeah, it's, well, not for the riser, for
Is there
the
a lot of
sides. For the sides, like if you look at under Matt's porch.
Yeah.
I'm just,
Under
how much of
seams.
that is exposed though?
Well, I don't know. That's what I was going to ask.
It's about a foot off the ground.
Only a foot. At
Yeah.
a foot, it's probably not worth it.
But I still have the front of the house, the porch. I took off the lattice work, which I haven't even put back yet, just because I'm letting.
I mean, in
everything-
reality, the tenant may want to put some plants around the side of
Right.
there.
Well, and it's on the back too.
So, I mean, it's.
So is this would be like the vinyl siding that's on three sides of it, that pretty much if that vinyl siding was to fail, I would come before you and say, oh, I need to repair the vinyl siding. You guys would go, oh, let's not repair it. Let's
You're gonna
just
replace it with the wood.
with the wood, yeah. And so you can see the back there if you zoom back out. I did take off that whole back thing. I've already ultra improved it because I took all the siding off. That's now all wood. See it on that little left side here?
Down here.
Yeah, you see this right here? See that different color in the
Yeah.
right there? I pulled off the vinyl siding up to there, and all of that I took the vinyl siding off of, and I put all wood on there. I mean, it is the direction I'm going with it. And then, because it's three sides vinyl siding right now. But I took that off when you guys approved the window. I had to pull off the siding to get the window in there, and I said, take all that junk off of there.
Yeah.
And some of it, a little bit of it's new wood that we had in the shed, but most of it was we put back. The wood that's underneath it was fine. It just had 30 layers of paint on it.
I mean, it makes it difficult for us. I mean, I know it wasn't your fault to go and, do the work before presenting to us, but we're trying
Makes
to
it
get
harder.
people to, be
Yeah.
aware of the
I figured
guidelines
that,
and
yeah.
make sure they come to us before they do the work so they can get guidance.
Well, we do have the garage to talk about. I will satiate that appetite right now. Let's look
Hang
at.
on, Pat.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead.
All right. So, any other comments in regards to the porch and the railings or no?
No.
Are we all comfortable with it's a non-permanent structure that can be removed at some point, and if it is rebuilt, We put in the guidelines that it needs to meet the requirements of the guidelines with the material specificity.
So
Okay.
just, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay? No?
Well, the question would be, would a wrought iron rail on that would have been made
I
you
mean,
happy?
it is period approved per our guidelines.
Yeah,
But I mean, I would probably go with a wood railing. It could be sanded down so there's no splinters and stuff like that at the top cap. You know, maybe it's a cedar or something like that. But
okay.
I mean, there's a couple different approaches you could do for the railing, and we can give you, some ideas of other historic properties of railing types that you could have a guideline or something.
Okay.
Here's some suggestions.
Right, yeah.
And there's some, if you go around town, you'll see some here and there, different ones. They're vastly different, but mainly wood. Okay, let's move on to the garage.
Do you want to do a motion on the porch, or do you just combine everything? Into
I think
one
it's
motion?
all one,
Okay.
so we should just do it as one.
Fine. Go to the existing.
All right, first question is what is the condition of the existing doors? Can they be repaired in kind?
They're in the dump, they're gone,
Okay.
dumpster.
Okay,
That I agree with.
I was over there enough, those doors.
I think they were actually holding up the structure, it was so bad. We were afraid to pull them out because it was gonna collapse, that's why that wood's there, the pole.
so obviously overhead coiling doors of aluminum are not in the guidelines. And my question is could you have these fabricated out of some sort of wood material? I mean, we've had other, fabrications done in town of other period pieces, and it seems like you've rebuilt the structure, re-leveled everything else. So I'm not sure of cost or anything. I know garage doors are expensive. Not sure of a local craftsman or something that could replicate this off of pictures. The sliding doors, period appropriate. I know they have operators for sliding doors all the time. You can use a overhead door and tilt it sideways and use a track. They do it in Mexico all the time. I've been there many times.
What is it, what do you do?
Use an overhead door opener and you turn it on its side and you put it on a pulley system that will pull the garage door. And I have pictures of it I can give to you of how they actually do it, because this is common, they do in Mexico. But I would suggest using the track system again and having the doors rebuilt to the period. That is my recommendation.
Dumb question, is there hinges on the top of that door?
There was a metal rod with some kind of bearing slide piece on it that was halfway there, half of it was there and half of it was missing.
It looks like cleats.
I think he's got I don't know what yours are, mine are bypass, and I think that's what used to be there when
That's
there
what
were.
mine are too.
Yeah, I think there used to be bypass, but I'm not
So
sure.
is that one unit right there that we're seeing, or is that?
That's just the front, that's two. But it's just, that one was just leaning up against the wall in front of the other one. And the metal slide rod for this one was missing on the outside, was gone when Bob or somebody else improved that front triangular section and put them fancy lights up in the eaves there.
So it was a series of 3 panels like we're seeing right now.
Basically, from
duplicated
what I could
twice.
tell, I think they were 3 doors and they had 2 strips of wood holding them together. From what I could tell, it was something homemade, kind of homemade-ish. On the back side of that, there was 2 strips of wood, like a 1x4 or 1x3, and 2 sections that were like screwed it together. It looked completely homemade to me. And they were rotten and falling apart, and glass was missing, and the track, and then the half of the rail track is for the outside one was missing. The one for the inside was there.
What does this, can you repeat what it says in the guidelines again, Kevin, for the accessory building?
Yeah, so again, the guidelines for accessory buildings are relatively sparse, but they do say that historic accessory building character and features must be repaired or replaced in kind. And obviously, being on a part of a contributing building, it's a little bit more strict than it would be if it was a non-contributing building.
Comments? And I understand it's easy to get those overhead doors and speed of efficiency and stuff, and I
It's
know
still costly. The quote for the door that looks really nice with windows and all the latches and all that stuff to make it look nicer. It like that there, I think the quote was like $4,200. So it's still a ton of money, and I can only imagine the wood idea is even more. And plus, the problem with doing 2 sliding doors, we're learning with the width of it. It's not even, you can't do 16 feet wide, so it's going to be like 7 feet wide. So I really would like to be able to use it for a car. The garage door guy that came out said that he really strongly recommended not doing the 2 doors and putting a center support on it, which it doesn't have now. It's just wide open. But he said if you did that, you're down to 7 feet wide. He said you've got inches to just pull a car in on one side. He highly recommended you put a 15 feet 8 inch wide singular door that looks like it's 2 doors, like that picture right there. So it has the look of 2 doors, but in reality, when you open it, you open up almost a 16-foot wide section, and anybody could pull a car in and not worry about hitting things. So there's the practical side of it.
Yeah.
Maybe the wooden door, 8-foot wide idea that was left to right was less about like what we use garages for today,
tractor or something.
or something maybe. But I would really hate to see being forced into having to buy and create wood doors for that thing. I'm more inclined to just leave it wide open, let it be a run-in shed at that point. And I will say a variety of my neighbors, just at an easy glance, have the aluminum doors. And this is it is the back of the house. I don't know if you can see this from the road at all. I don't think you can, but if you could see it from the road, it would be from one teeny little window coming down from Richard's house in between as you glanced over, but I don't think you can actually see it from the road.
I don't know. I mean, they do have 2 operators where basically you'd have one big door,
Mm-hmm.
and then where you have basically 3 panels per se making up one door,
Mm-hmm.
each of those would be individual with like a piano hinge on it basically, and they would almost bifold up onto the side.
Mm-hmm.
I think the tougher part is the materials, honestly, because I'm going to throw Mike under the bus here, just because, Mike's garage was allowed with being incongruent with the guidelines.
Well, that's a new structure.
It is a new structure, but, that's the thing, right? It's new versus repair. I don't know.
Mike, are you Mike?
Yep.
Where's your house?
7318.
He's on the other
It's
side of
along
Richard's
the-
house.
on the other side of my house.
Right beside him.
The white one.
He's got the dream garage.
Okay. You with Jason?
Yeah.
Okay. I sold that house. I was a listing agent.
Oh, you were? Did we talk?
Maybe at the open house. I wasn't your agent. I was the
I
agent
know.
for Ed Sincole.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was.
How about that garage you have? That thing is magnificent.
Don't even start on Mike stuff.
That's a
We can be here all
magnificent.
night.
That's a magnificent structure. So is Richard's, by the
Hey,
way.
I took my lumps. I stood up there and took my lumps.
Carrying the post in.
I did. I brought a simulated wood post in one night.
Oh my
Will
goodness.
this work?
Oh my goodness.
What about you guys? Any comments? What do you think?
I really don't know what to think. I
I see.
I think the fact that he's trying to bring it back to life is,
Yeah, I mean, it could have been 20.
I would have pushed it over.
So let me pause and tell you there was a phone call I got from the carpenter. He goes, Pat, I'm scared. I think I need to stop. And then we called Jonathan over because the carpenter didn't want to get back inside of it because he was afraid it was going to maybe collapse. And we had Jonathan come over and tell us what to do, and we strapped the heck out of it and put supports all over it and everything, and then he went back in. That is how it was. Now it's, and you probably saw it, Chad. Did you see the brace
Yeah,
work he did?
I saw what he replaced like a bunch of lap siding on the side too. It looks
With
like
that too, yeah. And that'll all be
because it
painted.
was like leaning to my direction.
Right. He pulled all that in square. I think it's a good structure.
Might be the only thing square at that place now. I don't
I
know.
mean, the problem we have is this: if we approve something like this, this goes against the contributing, non-contributing, and then people are going to say, "Well,
Right.
Pat replaced his doors, new garage doors."
Well,
So your concern is mostly to get a
Clearances.
vehicle in, right? Clearances. So would you be amenable, there are companies that I know of, one out of Pennsylvania that manufactures wood overhead doors. Would you be potentially amenable to that type of compromise, pending cost, obviously?
I mean, maybe, but the cost of it, maybe. I will say, with one of the problems with such a big, wide structure,
Right.
It's gonna be so heavy.
is the heaviness of it. I sell houses, so I see a lot of different things. The wood in time ends up looking sad because at long expanses it sags, and to me this is a great example of modern material that has the look of the old to keep the spirit of what you have. I get the shiny plastic on the rails doesn't make me feel good either, but that probably is temporary. Let me ask you this, if this makes any difference. There's a high likelihood I'll be coming before you if I can get the money together in a couple of years to do some.
Swimming pool.
No, if I can do something like your property.
Above ground.
No, a garage in the back with an ancillary dwelling unit in it. And I don't know, maybe you guys can tell me if
This
this,
will be a problem for years to come, isn't it?
well,
We should actually shut this down now.
so, this is my thinking.
Fucking parking everywhere.
I don't know the rules about if I do that.
Is doing 18 cars on Spring.
I'll be living there.
6.
It's in the multi-whatever district, but
Yellow House
listen,
has
Yeah.
20.
I will, if I put that structure in the back like Mike's, I'm not sure this structure is allowed to stay. Or would you guys say at that point, this structure has to stay? Because I wondered about the amount of money I've been putting into this thing already, maybe $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, just to make it strong again so far without even the door. So,
With modern codes,
yeah,
the way they stand today,
yeah.
your back, that building is right smack up against the property line.
This one is right. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, you'd have to leave a wall.
No, I wouldn't make this thing the dwelling unit. I think it would go straight in the back, right behind the house, similar to what Mike's is. It would be straight in the back, and it would be bigger than this by double or triple probably. Bob had some drawings that I saw for it at some point. He was mapping some stuff out. But my question is, if I get that approved, this shed would probably go away because it might be a garage like Mike's underneath, and there's no need for this. It's too big for a shed. I don't know if this structure could stay at that point, or I don't know if I would be allowed to take this structure down if you guys consider it a contributing quality of the house. To Mike's point, Mike, I'm not trying to be argumentative, but I mean, it is to Chad's point, is in 3 years, if I'm asking to build the new garage with the dwelling unit above it, I think that might go away. And so could it be that we view this as a non-contributing part of the property, even though, yes, it's who would guess at the age of it? It's not 1912, there's no way. 1950s maybe, or 40s, I don't know. But that would be a different lens to view this idea by, is to say, put less importance on it now, because there's at least as long as I own it, there's a chance I'll be asking to remove it, if it interferes with my ability to put in the larger building.
So they want the doors at all.
Hmm.
Why not leave it open?
Just leave it open. I know I wondered about that, but it seemed like all the money I was putting in to make it strong and everything, and it's ugly as a shed. It's ugly. So a door would actually make it pretty.
I think I would lean a little bit more towards this proposed solution than leaving it open. I mean,
If you left it open, you'd have to like paint the inside
I
white or
just,
at least or
I
something.
think that's,
Well, it'd be filled with junk. They're gonna put whatever they want, regardless of the color of the walls. The junk's gonna be the color.
Bet you if you leave it open, she won't junk it up too much, cause it won't.
Open to the weather, right?
Yeah.
If I felt that, so that's my 2 cents on this idea, really. If I wanted to go the hyper pure mindset and keep wood and all of that, I probably would have taken that wood that was there and given them to some woodworker and said, rebuild these things and put glass and all of that. Maybe Jonathan would have done it for me, but I would have done that thinking this was a keep it structure. And I had in my mind that it probably isn't a keep it structure, but when the carpenter got to doing the repair, I said, make it safe. And turned out it was worse than we thought it was. And it kind of grew into a bigger project. And I said, after spending I think it was $7,000 I spent on it. I said, you know what? It's worthy of now encapsulating it and giving it some life and closing it up. But the doors were already gone and thrown away at that point. I don't know if they were salvageable or if there was any value in it, but that was kind of my mindset, because I do care about the outside. I do care about the way it looks, and I care about the property in its holistic fashion. But
Can you bring up the garage door that he's anticipating using? Does it have a wood grain?
So there's this example.
I haven't bought a door yet, so these were just some ideas I had that I thought.
So, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
is a compromise that we say you replace it with a matte finished white door that has a wood grain, that has the character of the style that we're looking for.
I looked for that door, like the way mine was, the three
No, I know.
doors put
I'm
together.
just saying, they can emboss a wood grain onto the material
Oh, yeah,
instead
yeah.
of being a smooth
Oh,
finish
absolutely.
garage
His
door.
proposal said a wood grain.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. And these aren't close enough for you to see, but these were pictures that I thought would capture the spirit of what I was trying to do.
I mean, the issue really is the clearance. Like, this door is two independent doors, and that's a 16-foot opening.
Mm-hmm.
How large of an opening you're saying?
15.8. Well, the door the guy wants to put in there is a 15.8
Okay.
because that lets him put like a 2x4 on each side and kind of square the thing off. And
Using a buck.
yeah, a little bit, just the teeniest little bit of
I
buffer.
have a bypass, I have the two doors, I can't fit cars in my garage.
I can't fit them either, but that's not because of the size of the door.
No, it's the side of the door from there. And actually,
They have help for
I
that.
also have a garage that's falling apart too, so this is kind of, right.
Enlightening.
Yeah, I don't know what I
Oh,
would do
boy.
either.
Right.
I'm trying to put myself in your shoes because I'll probably be there soon enough.
Hmm.
And, I mean, I don't know, I think we
sounds
just
like,
say,
sounds like Richard has the right idea, lean against it.
yeah.
And hope.
I'm hoping one of the big trees falls onto it, to be honest with you, so, yeah, I think what you were saying is fine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not ideal either way, but it also could have fallen down or it could have torn it down because it was in pretty rough shape.
Just to be clear, if it was a new, you could potentially have had a different standard for the look of the door if it was a new build versus a repair. Is that kind of the thought process? It sounds like
Well,
it's,
It's just how it plays with each other. I mean, when you create a structure built now,
yeah.
you're creating material that matches whatever you're building with it, so.
And it's not a contributing building, right? Because you're building an accessory structure that's non-contributing.
I see.
This is
yeah.
unfortunately a contributing because it's an original structure.
Yeah, I don't think it's the original, but I mean, it's old, but it's not 1912. Actually, you know what? Somebody just gave me a picture. Oh, it doesn't show it. It shows the back corner of the house. Somebody just gave me a picture that showed
Yeah,
the
but
old.
it was, what we're saying, it was established before the guidelines of the HDC.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
from, what was the date of the HDC in Sykesville, established 1976 or something like that?
That was the zoning code. I think the HCC was actually in
In the 80s.
90s.
80s
Yeah.
or 90s. So,
I see.
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think for this instance, my opinion is we should suggest, if you could bring back up the original picture of the doors, is to find, Pat, something as close as you can,
Mm-hmm.
a 2/2 window. I know they make garage doors with larger openings instead of just having the clear lights on top. You see how this is, you know, a little bit less than half of the.
It is,
the
it's,
window?
yeah, it's
So-
about 40%. They don't have 40% windows.
Okay, well,
I've looked at a lot of catalogs. I was looking for that. They seem to favor the top, 20%
we're gonna
only.
give you some grace here, so just
Oh.
absorb the grace.
Okay. Okay,
So find something that is compatible with this,
okay,
as best as you can.
yeah,
Take these pictures, show these images to whatever catalog vendor you deal with.
right,
Ask for a wood grain embossed finish on the doors.
right.
And I would also put in the guidelines that these doors are not part of the contributing factor of the accessory building. And,
Mm.
you know, if any other renovations are done to the building in the future, they would have to be removed. If you tear down this building to build another structure, another garage, then we address it later
I
on.
see.
I mean, do you guys see any other?
I don't see a good solution, you know, there's no ideal one.
You can make it a one-car garage.
I don't even.
I think it's gonna be anyway.
Yeah, I don't think it's a two-car garage in any case.
Right, I don't think
Not
so.
if you wanna open the door to the car.
You guys didn't see it, but the Bob, I know 25, 22 years ago, he had cut the back and bumped it out in the bottom and pushed out a little I got rid of all that junk. So even from the road, I've enhanced, I didn't show you guys that part of it, but the back of that, which is backs to the yellow house, he had created a 3-foot diagonal bump out to fit his little car machine in there. And it just looked horrendous. It was plywood, it was ugly.
Is there a man door for that garage, or is that it?
There is a door, but I'm hoping to get it functional, it's just to the left. You're talking about just a regular door you open up? Yeah. It's on the house side of it, just to the left of what you see there. It's got a nice 5-panel door on it. It's been boarded up for years.
Because what you could do is you could frame up each side with wood, frame it out for a man door on one side, a fixed panel on the other side, and make a single garage door. That'd save you cost potentially. Just a thought.
To put a door in the front of it,
In the center.
in the center to make it.
The door's already on the side, it's not on the face.
I know, but
Oh,
I'm
I know
trying
what
to
you- okay.
appease a way to make it a one, since he's not gonna use it as a
I
two-car
got
garage
it.
because of clearance widths,
Yeah,
why not just embrace a one-car garage, infill it on both sides with the natural wood, and then use a one-car overhead door or something? I don't know.
my gut feeling on that, just my opinion, it'll look more contrived than it would with
Yeah,
it.
Yeah. I mean, also, then you're talking about trying to weave in new siding, otherwise you're gonna have a joint straight down.
No, I'm saying like almost frame it just like those.
Oh, I
doors.
understand that, but I'm saying where the current door is, or
Yeah.
you mean add a second, cause if you infill where the first one is, you're either gonna have to start weaving in.
I'm saying a
you
second,
know,
or they're just
yeah,
fixed panels on the side.
I won't speak for Pat, but I
Okay.
don't think that's worth his time.
Anyway, so I think, I'm not gonna be the one to make a ruling, cause I want you guys to do it, but, I think that's the path forward, is you find a door that meets, as best as you can, the character of this door, make sure it's wood grained embossed.
Mm-hmm,
And obviously, we want something with a low luster to it.
yeah.
So nothing high gloss.
And the window as large as I can get
Yes.
compared to today's standards, which
Yeah.
is the top
And if
20%.
you can find something.
And you really like the 2/2.
I mean, if we're gonna try to define the character of what it was originally, because
Yeah.
your windows in your house are 2/2, right?
No.
They're
They're
4/4.
6/1.
6/1.
6/1.
Yeah. Honestly, I think you just try to get as close as you can to what is there.
Right.
You're not gonna find that.
Right.
That's just not gonna happen unless.
Does that feel like it's a vertical pattern to you on the bottom? Because that
Yeah.
is something they kind of offer with the doors, is what they call vertical, and they kind of get a little bit elongated
Yeah.
with them, as opposed to these square chunks. So we could call it a vertical something on the bottom with a 2/2 window. And it would have been 6, 1, 2, 3 on each side.
Okay?
Can I bring up one more thing?
Oh, boy.
As long-
It just occurred to me, I had plans to use the old brick to put a walkway from the driveway, which is pretty much from right here to
Porch.
to the porch, because it's just mud and it's a little bit of a drainage thing there. I wasn't going to ask your permission, but I'm here now, and I thought, oh boy, does a walkway No, but does a walkway count as improving? It's not a structure.
Well, that's a whole other
Can we
thing,
say
right?
no?
So like, so
I think he actually wants us to undo it.
so the one thing I would point to there, right,
Yeah.
is if you look in our guidelines, and a walkway is a little different, but like if you look at a driveway guideline, it says specifically no cobblestone, no brick, anything like that, which
On
I
the
find,
driveway.
yeah, I find very strange,
Yeah.
just knowing what they used to do. But
Right.
that's what our guidelines are, is basically if you have a certain pitch, a certain grade to your driveway, you can do asphalt, and if not, you're stuck with gravel.
Oh.
And so it's a give and take, right? Because like my house has concrete. Now that concrete's been there, I don't know how long.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you ever went past when Bob lived there, but he'd tell you about the historic concrete in front of his house.
Hmm.
So that's been there. I don't know, to tell you the truth, on a brick walkway or not at this moment, but our guidelines don't tend to favor brick, cobblestone, whatever, for whatever reason. But that's without looking at it specifically for walkways.
We took the chimney down that wasn't being used inside the house, and I saved all that historic brick from 1912, and there's nowhere else to put it.
Yeah.
And I thought, there's just enough to do a walkway with it. Why would what, want me to go to Home Depot and buy some square pavers?
The other side of that, and you might know more about this, architects, are chimney brick any good for walkways? I have no idea.
They're 100 years old.
Well, I know that. I'm just throwing
They've
that.
survived. I don't care if they get
Oh.
chipped up. I just want something besides mud.
Let me see. Let me pull up the guidelines real quick.
Is that, maybe that's
That's
one of
what I'm
those ones
looking
I
at.
shouldn't have asked.
See?
Ooh.
You know, you're the
Now
first
you
one in a
gotta put
while
the-
that's made
you
us
gotta-
think.
You gotta put the chimney back.
It was already, didn't go above
I feel like hardscape not attached to a structure, not like contributed in the structure. I mean, how would that be in our guidelines at all?
Thank you, Matt. A voice of
It's
reason.
under section 10.
Well, I'm not pulling up my papers that I put down last year, so I don't know what you guys want to do. That's crazy. You can't
So I
see
think-
it if the grass is long enough.
Right.
So it goes with walkways and paths connect residences to public sidewalks. You're
Not
talking
public.
in the back of the
I'm
house.
Yeah.
talking about the back to the
Yeah.
private area. It wouldn't be the same.
So basically, it just says to maintain existing. It does say scored concrete, brick, flagstone, or other appropriate material. So
There you go.
There you go.
I don't
It
really
says
need to,
brick.
probably don't need permission then.
I wouldn't.
You could throw it into this approval if you want to, but that's setting a
Stop
precedent.
bringing things up.
We have a brand new building on Main Street
I know, yeah.
that has brick all the way across the front.
Did you want to bring up anything else?
Mm-mm. Thank you, Chad.
All right, so is there a motion?
If you want me to just real quickly review, so. I
I
wrote it down.
What is the motion?
I wrote it
I'll
down.
make a motion to do whatever he says.
Yeah, so you guys can make a motion to approve the application, so long as any future changes to the rear steps brings it more into compliance with the current HDC guidelines, and then the garage door can use a modern material so long as it is as compatible as possible with the original doors, including matte finish, wood grain, 2/2 windows, etc.
Okay.
Anyone want to repeat that? Otherwise, I'll go for it. All right. I'll make a motion to approve application 2026-03 for replacement of rear entry steps and repairs to existing garage, with the requirement that if additional changes are made to the rear steps and landing, that it be brought more into compliance with the HDC guidelines, and that the garage door be wood grain, matte finish, and as closely replicating the original design of the doors.
Okay.
Did I get it all?
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
Congratulations, only an hour.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
Thanks for
That's a
this
good
effort.
discussion, and I certainly learned a lot about what the spirit of the approach is here, so thank you.
Okay, thanks for coming in. Get out.
Coming in.
Okay, back to the agenda. Let's jump to the top of the agenda. Partial demolition, application 2026-01. I don't know who was here for the last, I was not. Okay, so did you have an opportunity to review the video?
I did, yeah.
Okay, is there any questions regarding the demolition of the exterior as it pertains to the guidelines? Can you give us an update on the zoning? Did you have a zoning meeting about the?
Yeah, so we did a planning commission meeting to review essentially the site plan from, and they did have, similar comments that were brought up in terms of, access and pedestrian safety, signage, mirrors, all that stuff, and ultimately the conclusion was they didn't want to prohibit adding additional parking there because it's desperately needed. So they required as much signage as possible, some stop signs instead of yield signs here, some mirrors so you can see around corners, and then they say they have 14 feet of clearance there, and a car travel lane is minimum required 10 feet, so they will paint, at the very least, to delineate a 4-foot wide section for pedestrians along adjacent to the building here to get in and out. Obviously there are some concerns with queuing and whatnot, but they ultimately, again, from a zoning perspective, from a planning commission's perspective, they wanted to be able to provide allow for the parking in the rear here, because again, it's needed at the site. It's just a tricky site to accommodate the
Did
parking.
they mention how they were going to accommodate the back of the building when the demolition is going to occur for the exposed exterior wall?
They did not. So that is something that I can certainly mention to them if you guys would like to have them come back for that. I will note,
He did note that
it is a
the
non.
CMU was built up against it after the fact, so I assume it's gonna be an exterior facade that comes out from the destruction.
So
I was
it's a
assuming.
bearing wall that's internal.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's built off of it.
Okay.
And it is a non-contributing building overall, just for reference.
Okay, I mean, I don't know if there's anything else to discuss. Our guidelines are it's a non-contributing building, and it has no relevance to the historic district, really. It's just safety and zoning requirements is our main concern. So is there a motion to approve application 2026-01?
I'll make a motion
Okay.
to approve 2026-01.
Okay, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
Go back to
We are on 2026-02, new door and window decals at 7568.
just pull up real quick. So I'll go through this quickly. Applicant is requesting approval for display window and entry door decals for their business at 7568 Main Street. So really they want to update the decal signage on the front entry door, and then add new decal signage on one of the display windows. They will be made from vinyl material and be replacing the old graphics from the State Farm business that's no longer in the space. So the guidelines mention that signs on display windows should be located and designed so that they don't obscure visibility into the ground floor. Signage on the display windows should occupy no more than 15% of the total glass area to which they are displayed, and then signage on the door should occupy no more than 10% of the total glass area in which they are displayed. Vinyl lettering is typically not recommended for these types of signs in the HTC guidelines. So quick analysis, so the application, I won't go through the specific numbers, but essentially based on the numbers they gave us, the display door, it occupies, or the display window rather, it occupies 12.6% of the window, which is less than the 15% maximum, and then the door is 9.7%, which is less than the 10% maximum. So obviously both calculations comply with the standards established in the guidelines. And then regarding the material, so again, vinyl is not a recommended material for display window signage in the guidelines, but the commission could still approve the application if they're comfortable with the request. And I did note that vinyl decals have become common for display window signage in the historic district. So with that, HEC is just being asked to determine if the location, size, and materials for the decal signage at 7568 Main Street are appropriate or presented, or offer alternative suggestions for potential concerns. But considering that the size of both decals are consistent with the guidelines, and the fact that vinyl decals are commonly approved for similar signage in the district, staff would be comfortable with the application as presented. Unfortunately, the applicant is not here this evening to answer questions, but if you have questions, I can certainly reach out to.
Comments, open floor?
Seems pretty straightforward.
We just did a vinyl sign for the place right next door. Falls in line with the size of it.
Yeah, as long as they maintain it, doesn't bubble up and keeps it, adhere to the window, I don't see a big issue with it. It's a temporary sign, it can be peeled off at any time. I don't see it as a permanent structure, so I don't see where there's a big deal on it. And, businesses change frequently, so.
Right.
Okay, is there a motion?
What's the number?
02.
Make a motion to approve 2026-02, add new door and window decals for 7568 Main Street.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, I think that rounds it up, except for the art mural regulation conversation.
Yeah, so obviously, this is, assuming you guys still want to do it, time considering, I'm fine to go through. I put together just a quick presentation to talk a little bit about public art and murals in the historic district, just because it's a topic that's come up a few times, so I just want to sort of clarify where we're at on that.
Yep.
All right. Hold up, and I will be through as quick as I can, but I'll stand up here. Just kidding, I'm gonna stay where I'm at. And then we can move the mic as much as I can. That should be good. Perfect. All right. Hopefully they can hear me. So again, this was really brought up because some members of the HCC have raised some questions about the review of public artwork in the historic district. And as it currently stands, our guidelines actually don't give the HCC any authority to regulate public art. And in the past, we brought these installations to the commission as really as a courtesy, and in order for you guys to provide some non-binding feedback to property owners. But again, there's nothing really granting the HCC any real authority in regulating it in any significant way. So I figured we could take some time just to open the discussion on the topic and figure out if and how we want to regulate this moving forward. So real quick, like I said, just want to kind of identify some of your guys' goals and priorities, understand the powers and limitations for regulating public art and murals. I think that's the most important part of this discussion. And then I pulled some possible language from another jurisdiction that we could look at, just mostly as an illustration, so we could see what it would look like if we were to add something like this to our guidelines. So first, the steps to updating these guidelines. So because these guidelines were adopted by the mayor and town council, any amendment or addition would also require their approval. So generally speaking, it would be, we would kind of decide on some draft language that the HDC wants to use. If you guys decide you want to go that route, send it to the mayor and town council. They would discuss the topic. They would receive public input, so there'd be opportunities for public comment. They would confer with lawyers and such to make sure any language that gets added isn't legally dubious. All of that would then be taken into consideration for them to either, they could approve the addition, they could deny it, or they could make, similar to what you guys often do with motions, make some some tweaks to the language, and then add it in that way. Something else that I would suggest potentially doing is maybe even before step one and sending them actual language is we could reach out to the mayor and town council and ask for them just to discuss whether or not they'd be open to adding this type of language to the guidelines before we spend the time of actually crafting it and then sending it to them, just to potentially have it shot down. So yeah, we don't have to decide on anything tonight, but I just want to make sure that the process is understood and what the powers and limitations could be. So if we're clear on that, this is, I guess, the main thing that I wanted to touch on, or make sure that you guys understand if we wanted to go this route, are the things that we could regulate and what we couldn't regulate. So obviously placement, height, massing scale, and sometimes materials are things that could probably be regulated by the HDC, but we wouldn't be allowed to touch content, color, subject matter, style, all of that would be off limits, because all of that, you start getting into freedom of expression, freedom of speech, and that becomes a First Amendment issue that has been litigated already. Specifically, I spoke to a planner from another jurisdiction in Maryland where they had an issue where they tried to regulate some content and it didn't go well for the municipality. Actually ended up in, I think, their mayor losing their position. So it was a whole thing, but I want you guys to understand, so if this is something that we want to regulate, though, it's limited in scope as to what could actually be regulated. So you couldn't look at a piece of art and say, well, I don't like how that art looks, so we're not going to approve it, or I don't like the style, I don't think the style of the artwork necessarily represents the historic time frame. Again, that's freedom of expression. It would really just be, how is it placed on a building? If it's, sculpture, how does it, is it making sure it's not blocking, significant historic features of a building? Make sure the attachment mechanism isn't damaging historic features. Things like that are really the things that can be regulated. Again, not so much the content or subject matter or style. Does that make sense? So again, we can't get into sort of First Amendment, freedom of expression
But
type
we
of
can
concerns.
have jurisdiction over, I know we had discussions about this in the past, about whether it's a mural or whether it's signage.
Yeah, so
right?
that's also something that I think is worth clarifying.
Yeah,
And because our guidelines don't specifically say what is a sign and what isn't a sign, but that's something that we can certainly clarify. And I looked into some language that we could add, and I didn't add it into this presentation, but there are ways that I think we could pretty clearly define what's a sign and what's not a sign moving forward, so that.
and I've thought long and hard about this. A couple things I would like to add to it is duration of installation as something like, can we define, so maybe we can make it more of a revolving art thing for other people to have opportunities to do installments in places. So if we have something for, say, like the tiles on the side of the building here, if we say, all right, we're gonna leave this up for 2 years, right? That's the duration that we're gonna do it, and then that installment will come down, and that will be an opportunity for something else to go up as another installment. That's an opportunity to refresh in the town, to have other artworks in there, and maybe we, as a council, say, I don't know how we do this if we're allowed to do it, but limit the amount of art placements within the town, so it doesn't, every building doesn't have an art installment on every corner or everything, right? I know people love art, and it's a very toughy, subject that people tiptoe around, but I think duration, maintenance is another thing, right? So like, if something's up for a period of time, it starts rusting, or whatever the sort of art form it is, if it starts deteriorating, looking bad over a certain time, we should be able to look at it and say, it's time to take it down, or it needs to be refreshed or approached in some manner. I don't think leaving it up for infinite amount of time and saying it's art is not a good way to approach art.
Yeah.
Because it should be enjoyed, and maybe if an artist puts up a metal sculpture and they intend it to rust out, okay, that's something different. But if you're doing a painting and it fades and it doesn't look good over after a year, then it should be probably replaced if it's not the intended look. And that ties into style, I guess, maybe color, maybe content.
Yeah, and I will say, and you're kind of getting into, so this is one of those things, from a zoning perspective, we fall into this a lot with signs, where it's, when you're starting to deal with, what's freedom of expression, what's free speech, what's not, it becomes a rabbit hole.
Sure, we don't want to do that, but
right, so just something to be weary.
But I think we want to maintain, like, if this started fading out here where it turned white on the outside of the building, people would be like, oh, it looks terrible, right? We should take it down or replace it. That's what I'm thinking a duration should be.
Which reflects also not just duration, but material.
Yeah.
Because that discolored thing on the side of the building was questioned whether that was gonna work or not from the very beginning, and it didn't. And I think that we could learn from material what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, and I think that's something with, if materials were to be, you know, added into our guidelines, is something that, from an art perspective, could be regulated. You guys could maybe say, for instance, you know, you would only approve a public art installation that is made from materials that are gonna last a certain amount of time. But regarding, you know, duration of installation, number of installations, maintenance, I can't say for certain one way or the other if those are things we would be able to include. Again, these are questions that I'll certainly run by our town lawyers and attorneys and get their feedback on, or council can speak with the attorneys as well and get their feedback on those certain things, but I'm noting them down as things that.
So one of the things too is like, you know, we've talked about in the past is like, if you have, let's say Fred Gossage has a building in here and he decides one day he wants to paint Mickey Mouse on the side of his building. There's nothing in the guidelines that says he can't do it, right? That's an expression of art, right? It's his subject matter or whatever he wants. So we should, I don't know how we, you know, it's a historic building, it's a contributing building within the town, right? And we shouldn't be allowed to do a public mural on a historic building unless it has approval from the HDC, is my opinion.
Yeah, so I guess I'll go, and we can come back to that, but I guess I want to go through some of the potential language too, because maybe this will sort of answer some of those, at least with like placement, because again, we can talk about, you know, placement, height, scale, massing, things like that, which, you know, that could potentially, maybe, you know, you can't tell them you can't tell someone that they can't do a certain subject, but you can make sure it's placed in a way that isn't detrimental to a historic structure or a historic feature, historic facade, that type of thing.
What has been historic, or what you've learned about how you approach the notion of scale?
So again, it's one of those things where I haven't looked too deeply into it, but I think with scale, it's really talking about, you know, if it's compared to whatever structure it's on, or if it's a sculpture, you know, where it's located in relationship to whatever historic features near it, making sure the scale of is appropriate.
But appropriate is the part that
Yeah, if somebody
Right.
bought the French twist, let's say, and they came back and said, I want to paint flowers all over the outside of the building, all different colored hippie flowers all over the outside. There's nothing in our guidelines that says you can't do it. There's nothing.
Currently now.
There's nothing.
Mhm.
And so, is that appropriate to the town? And like, it's our historic district where we're trying to maintain the fabric of the town. So that's what we're trying to figure out is like, how do you define what's?
I think that goes a lot into the scale, right, and the placement. Those are two key ones, because if you're getting them popping up on primary facades of historic buildings, that's a way different issue than if they're on a rear portion of it or a side. And also the scale, like with the windows, we cap it 15%. It should be something similar for public art. It should be something accenting the town and not something taking over the town per se. Like we shouldn't end up with the entire side of the French twist, but if they, I don't know, next to the concrete they painted to make it look like there's a little garden there, I could, you know. That would be my point of view, is when you get the massing, the placement, all that right, it becomes less of a concern.
And that's why I think duration would be good too, because, you know, it keeps building and building and building. It's like, how many installments you could have where it's like, then you're monitoring multiple installments all through town for whatever duration, years and years and years. And
I think I certainly, and I can do some of my own homework on this, but I would benefit very much from, you know, what are other historic districts, how are they dealing?
So that's something that I was going to touch on, and since you brought it up, I'll mention it. Most historic districts, most jurisdictions, especially ones our size, don't regulate public art at all. And the ones that I found that did, and again, even the ones that do,
Public art where?
in the historic district. So there's nothing in, and I called, you know, other jurisdictions, talked their plans. I said, does your historic district commission or committee or whatever they call theirs, do they review applications for public art installations, murals, anything like that? Vast majority of the answer is no. They don't look at it. They don't regulate it because again, it can become sort of a rabbit hole,
Well,
so to
maybe,
speak.
I guess
Um,
maybe we can be the point of the spear on this.
Well, and then the other thing I was gonna mention too is the ones that did regulate public art, they're a little bit bigger, so Frederick, for example, is one, Annapolis is another one. They actually have separate art councils, which are either the approving authority on this stuff or are a secondary review authority that provide information to the Historic District Commission, who then ultimately approves it. So my point is, at least from what I could see, it would be really uncommon for an HCC or RHCC to be the sole review agency for any sort of public art installations in our
I don't
historic
think that's what
district.
we're asking. I think we're just to be included as in the process.
Well, no, that's what I mean. It's no one else really. Other districts don't include it in the process, and those that do have, they specifically call out, public art councils or historic art councils that are involved in the process.
I don't see how they intertwine. If you have historic buildings and you're repainting on the side of a historic building, then HCC should be part of that discussion.
No, I'm not saying it's anyone's.
Right.
I'm just saying that it's not a common thing that HCCs look
Sure.
at least around us in jurisdictions of our size. Typically, it's not something that gets reviewed.
Yeah, I'm concerned because I feel like this is going a different way than I thought. I thought we were trying to set a guideline that said when we have a unpainted brick facade, when we have a historically contributing building that has material and function that is in keeping with when it was built,
Mhm.
they can't go and paint something, they can't go and change the building and how it acts as a historic building structure.
Yeah, so I guess at least for historic masonry, the guidelines do already mention that, you're not supposed to paint over historic masonry anyway. So that kind of would cover that. I think that would easily cover, someone painting over and say, oh, well, it's art, you can't paint over it regardless of what it is. Historically painted structures and facades and things like that, obviously then it becomes a little bit more unclear.
So,
Yeah.
is there a problem you're trying to solve, or is there an anxiety you're trying to
That's my
prevent?
question. I thought we were trying to prevent, but it sounds like we're trying to solve.
Well, I think we're trying to maintain the historic fabric of the buildings that we currently have that are historic buildings, right? So we have contributing and non-contributing buildings. The contributing building, we have a more stringent view on those buildings. If we're saying, that there's no guidelines that, stop somebody from painting Mickey Mouse on the side of your building, for instance, right? Then that's a mistake, I think, in our guidelines for the HCC. If it's a non-contributing building and somebody came and said, all right, I want to paint Mickey Mouse, and you say, all right, what's the placement, what's the height, what's the massing, what's the scale, then maybe that can be a discussion piece. But I think the historic character of a historic building, I don't think back in the 1912s they had Mickey Mouse or any sort of murals painted on the side of their buildings. I mean, they had, advertisements in barns.
Sure, but
and
again,
stuff.
then we're
He's
getting.
saying we can't get into
but
color
then we're
or subject
color,
matter
yeah.
or content.
Yeah.
Right.
He's saying we cannot regulate all the things that we were afraid of and trying to regulate.
So that's where what I was saying of just placement size, right? Because I'm going to disagree here on Mickey Mouse. I don't care if Mickey Mouse is on the side of a building so long as it's not obscuring a historic feature and it's not like the dominant feature of the building. Because if you have a 20-foot Mickey Mouse, now you're detracting from the building per se. You're taking the focus off of the architecture. But, if you have a little mural that takes up less than 15% of the side of a building that's not even the primary facade, and it's not obscuring architectural features, I don't know that there's an issue there. But that's where, we have some storefronts in town. They have a lot of different architectural features. They have different paneling. If you had murals that covered up that detail and obscured that detail, that could be a problem as far as historic preservation goes, because you're obscuring the character.
There's two different things. There's
But-
freestanding art, and then there's applied art, right? So we have applied art, which is painted on the side of the buildings, and you have freestanding or applied art, which is like the tiles on here, right? That
Or
can be
also,
removed.
also sculptures and
Or
things like that
sculptures and
would
stuff.
be included in this.
The things I'm talking about is maybe potentially putting a duration, if we can, on the freestanding stuff. Like, so maybe within reason, right? Like the train behind the train station back there, that's a piece of metal work, right? Maybe we say, right, that can stay there for 5 years, right? It starts rusting out, starts looking bad. We replace it in kind and put another piece of art in that duration. Maybe, that's just a discussion piece. But I think applied art to sides of the building, that's a bigger discussion piece. Because it could potentially stay there for a long time if an owner has the building.
But I'm also hearing that there's no precedent in any other HDC that,
At least, so there, I mean, again, there are, I don't wanna say nobody regulates this stuff, because it does get
nobody
regulated.
regulates it within this, so we would be asking to add an art commission to advise.
We would be asking, we would basically be giving the HCC the authority to review this stuff on their
But
own.
that, I don't hear a precedent for.
Not that, I mean, I'm sure somewhere
That-
there
that
is,
you've-
but yeah, I mean, I didn't do an exhaustive search of every
I
HCC in
didn't.
the
Right,
state,
right.
but you know, I did 10, 12, 15 that are similar size, to us and around the area, and from what I found, is most of them don't, and again, those that do have additional eyes that are looking at it beyond the historic district. But I'm sure out there, there is somewhere that the historic district may be the sole arbiters of art in the historic district. But I certainly can't say for certain, and I didn't come across
Are we
it.
a historic district or are we an art town?
Well, so again,
That's what I was
I don't know, I can't speak for everyone here. I'm not here looking to say yay or nay to art.
Mm-mm.
I'm saying, as far as buildings go, make sure that it is not taking over the building,
Sure.
it is not replacing the
And I think
character.
that's where, like you said, a lot of the placement, height, mass, and scale, that
Right.
you can use all of that to kind of,
Right, so
and
rather,
dictate that, but
But
you
it's-
gotta make sure
But
that,
just so I'm clear, it sounds like it's a concern attempting to control something that may happen. It's not something has happened and there's a problem and it's become a problem and now you're concerned. It's,
I mean, I think we've had art murals that have come up to us before that we've had deep discussions about, whether it's art or signage and stuff of that nature. Moon Shadow is one.
right,
of
yeah,
the
I was
recent
here
ones.
for the moon
Yeah,
shadow.
and
So, I
that's-
mean, that one's, you know, is it a mural, is it signage, it's kind of both, but.
yeah, and then that's something where we can certainly look into at least clarifying what constitutes a sign, so we know for sure, you know, someone can't just paint a giant sign and say, well, it's a mural, when it's clearly, you know, directing you to a business or a good or something like that. So that's certainly something that we can work on, even independently of this, of just defining what a sign is.
So it sounds like this train is coming down the tracks and, you know, I guess we need to sort of, you know, kind of like the idea that you put out there, that I think if we could have any influence, would be to try to identify appropriate places for
Sure.
ongoing art. I mean, I'm fine with art, I love
Good.
art, I love all kinds of art, but I think that's, to me, when we start kind of being vague about what we want to have happen with the historical structures, kind of undermines the whole purpose of, you know, we've been struggling with trying to get around the table and get a color palette proposed, right? And it's for the exact same reason, or a similar reason, that, you know, we're not gonna be really liking somebody doing a, you know, school bus color building, or, you know, a purple building, right? So the aesthetic matters. Forget the art for just a second, it's the aesthetic.
Yeah, and like I said, I think if there are potentially ways that you can regulate to a certain extent the aesthetic through, you know, the placement, height, massing, scale, but again, this is all assuming that you are granted the authority to do so. And really the point tonight was not that necessarily any trains coming down any particular track, it's something that has been brought up, and I just want to make sure that we're aware of, I guess, what our current situation is, and which is there is nothing in the guidelines that allow the HDC to dictate public art, and this is and these are the limitations that would be there if it is potentially something that got added to the guidelines.
I'm not gonna play lawyer in this, but I mean, so the civil entity that we are, we couldn't regulate, or we couldn't dictate whether we the content was appropriate?
Nope, no, that's First Amendment, freedom of expression, can't touch it.
It is
It's the
interesting.
same with, it's the same thing with signs.
So.
With the color, we've talked about color with historic buildings and being historically appropriate, so that's out the window then.
I'm sorry?
And that would be out the window too. You mentioned cannot regulate color, even when it.
So
defines
so this is specifically talking about art.
just about art.
Yeah, I mean, they're adding a required color palette for buildings would be a separate conversation.
Okay.
This is specific for art. You can't say, well, you know, I like your car, but it needs to be green instead of blue. Yeah, or, you know, type of.
I would disagree with you about the content.
Me too.
Well, I mean, it's been litigated. It's
Fair enough, but
I-
I'm sure that if there's pornography placed.
well, yeah. So anything, stuff like that, that's different. That's
How's
in.
it different?
Well, I'm not getting into the court. You know, we're not going to like court again.
So there
I mean,
is.
Again, but no, listen. But this is my
You make a
point.
blanket statement. If it's content, we can't challenge it.
This isn't my statement.
There
This is the law.
There is a
This is
code
what
on the
law
books,
is.
I think, about obscenity or vulgarity.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
for the
Yeah.
town.
Right. That's in
So
the
that
code.
would be, I don't know,
If somebody wants to put a
whoever's.
swastika on the side of a building or something like that.
You'd have to argue it, I get that, but.
Right, but again, the exact conversation we are having now has already happened in the courts, and this isn't my opinion, this is the law.
So
These are things that legally we have been told that we cannot regulate. And so I'm just relaying that message to you guys.
yeah,
It's a freedom of expression thing, it's a First Amendment, issue. So that's why I'm saying, if we were to add public art, I don't wanna say, oh, you know, I don't want you guys to think that if this does get added to the guidelines, that you guys have the ability to regulate content, because you will not have that ability.
I would say more so, to go with Kevin here, we're not gonna regulate content because if something is against town code, it's not gonna be our decision to say yay or nay on that. That'll be, you know, the
Yeah,
town to
it'll-
enforce it. So it is better in that way to just take us out of the question and not have us look at content. And if it's something objectionable, you know.
Yeah, and I believe all of this even, you know, it was through a matter of signage as opposed to art, but it falls under the same thing. It went all the way up to the Supreme Court and was decided that, you know, certain things can't be regulated. Obviously, like Brian said, there's issues of vulgarity and things like that are different, but you can't tell
I
someone
think
that-
you know, like if you look at Savannah or like Charleston or something like that, they have art councils and stuff like you said. And so that makes sense that there's a different organization that reviews that and comes to the HDC and says like, hey, they want to put this sort of graphics on the side of their building for whatever reason or whatever content it is. And that would be for us to review if we find it appropriate or not for a historic character of the building. I think that's,
A more local example would be Frederick.
yeah.
Yeah, no, and I pulled
They do have an art council
Right.
and
I pulled language from Frederick's.
they really have some gorgeous art in that town.
Yeah, Frederick's great, and like I said, the language that I pulled here is from Frederick.
Well, but I think when you end up with a council, then you also end up with people advocating and seeking out grants to get art, you know, courting artists to bring certain things in. So, you know, there might be more incentive for an artist to seek out something in Frederick because there's a council that might be able to help pay for something or go after a grant or, you know, be specific about how the art. So if that's if it's about getting more art in town, you know, then it sounds like then there's a request for an art council that could advise what you guys are doing. I think it's,
I just think back about some of the art projects that came to us before, like painting the guardrail behind the French twist, and that was not a really good idea to do, right? They're Corten steel, they're gonna paint some sort of mural, and if they didn't realize that the Corten steel was bent like this, and they wanted to paint pictures of kids on it, and it wasn't a flat surface, and you know, it wouldn't have held up. It would have looked like that was probably 10 years ago or something, and it was like, do we want, you know, installments that don't stand the test of time? You know, and that gets into content and stuff, and I want to stay clear of that, but I still think that we should like kind of have some sort of like, this is you know, we're trying to maintain the historic fabric of the town.
Mm-hmm.
Is it keeping in character with the town to have certain art installments in certain places? And it's a fine line, like you said, Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to. Like,
Yeah, I mean, And that might be one of the reasons a lot of jurisdictions avoid it, because again, it's tricky. It's a tricky
It is
one.
tricky.
It's a tricky one to figure out of where do you draw that line? Where can you legally draw that line
But I think
to avoid?
duration would be good. I mean, like, just
Well, yeah, or some sort of maintenance to it.
maintenance,
just-
duration, like some expectations so people don't, you put something up, they leave it up for 35 years, and you're like, oh, you took it down. Like, if it starts looking shabby, I did a project up in SUNY Purchase, New York, where they had art installments all over the campus. We had to build a couple buildings. The stuff was disintegrating, and people are like protesting. We had to take it literally falling to pieces, and you're like, it's crumbling. Like, so we'd want to get into the thing where it's like, yes, it's art, but it's not maintained. It's not like, oversight on top of it to make sure it's still appropriate for the town, not faded, not whatever. So that's the sort of thing I want to see as well. Because we all like art, but it's just, we want it to look nice, and we don't want it to like,
Sure.
look 5 years from now look like junk and then be like, ugh.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's why we wanted to have this conversation to kind of see where you guys are at.
So I think it's just a bigger topic we all need to think about, and maybe like research other jurisdictions
Yeah.
and see how they treat it, and
Is
maybe
it
come back
something-
together and
Yeah, we can put it on the next agenda as a continuing discussion and keep
Yeah.
talking about it. It's something. Do you want us staff to bring it to the mayor and town council?
I mean, I've already talked to Mayor about it,
Mhm.
but I think you can add those items that we discussed this evening and see if that is something that's,
Okay.
maybe you can report back next time as like, yeah, maybe we can discuss these items that you guys have added and like, elaborate maybe on
I
some
do
of it.
think from the council from a council perspective, like, again, is there a problem that you're trying to solve, or is it an anxiety you're trying to curb? Like, I think that would be helpful to understand
I
what
think there's
the-
been confusion in the past. That's the first thing.
Mhm.
We've had art brought to us before, and it's either been in non-contributing buildings or contributing buildings or installments in other places. And it hasn't been clearly defined of how that art installment is done. If it's a signage, if it's art, it's a mural, whatever it is, defining what it is in the first place. And B, if it's being maintained and like, oversight of what art is appropriate for the town or what is allowed in the town, how much of it is allowed in the town, how long it can stay up, all these questions.
What's the current procedure for art?
There is none.
Nothing.
So that's what we want, is something.
Yeah, and like I said, and
Maybe it's
again,
not much, but it's at least
yeah.
something.
I will say it's not uncommon, at least for a lot of jurisdictions I looked at, for that to be the case where, it's just sort of up to the property owners to.
When they did the Tree of Life, they came to us, right?
They did, and again, in
That
the
was
past,
because it affected the building.
not necessarily. So any art installation that was brought in the past, whether or not, regardless of how it was treated by the commission, really, the commission didn't actually have the authority to regulate it in any sort of meaningful way. Because the guidelines weren't there. So really, they were brought as courtesies for non-binding feedback. And I think that along the way, it kind of became something that maybe we were trying to regulate too much without having the actual authority to do it. So that's why I wanted to have this conversation, to make sure that currently the authority isn't there. And if we do have the authority, there's certain limitations that we have to follow. And just make sure that you guys are aware of that, and then, we can have this discussion and see if it's something that.
I mean, they have the selfie painted thing on the side of their brick of pinup. That's been there for 10 years, I don't know.
But to
8
the
years.
point of that tile installation, that it may not be something that we currently oversee technically, that needs to go before the HDC because it's obscuring a building and its features.
Sure.
I mean, that's where I'm kind of standing with it. I think
Well,
when it
so-
starts to, we need to define how it affects our buildings, and if it does affect our buildings in a way that is pretty obvious, and I think that would be one where they're covering up a window, they're covering up the side of the facade that is very visible from Main Street. Obviously, that was the goal of the
Yeah.
art, of course,
Right.
but it still seems like it's in our purview for that kind of moment.
Right, so that
Not to
was,
shut down the art by any means,
Right.
not to
Yeah,
say
no, I
anything
get it.
bad, but to say location.
But we based
Oh,
that
we call
on
the
a
building.
temporary, because we knew it wasn't a permanent installment. They said that it could be taken
Right.
down at any time.
Right, But,
Okay,
but
well,
that
how
was
long's
part of
this-
the,
how
that was
long's
part
this
of the
staying up?
review, is
Right,
what I'm saying.
correct.
So we said, okay, since you're not affecting the building in a way that's permanent, that's fine. And that's what our review entailed, and that was all we did. That's all, we're not here to talk about art, define art, or do
Yeah.
anything of that
I
sort. And
agree.
I'm really just worried about the buildings and how the art affects that building that we're trying to do.
And I think, and again, a lot of my motivation for doing this was, it specifically came up with the moon shadow one. Some of that conversation did start to stray into the content, and I know that so I just want to make sure if this is something that does begin to be regulated, we know where the guide rails are, because otherwise we're getting into potentially legally dubious issues, or setting ourselves up for legal challenges that we really we don't want to put you guys in a situation where you're making decisions that can be easily challenged, legally speaking. So that was part of my motivation for wanting to bring this up too, is making sure that, one, make sure that we know that currently there's nothing in the guidelines that allow us to regulate, and two, if we do, again, there's limits to what that regulation would look like.
All right.
And I had a few more slides with just language from Frederick, but I can just email that stuff to you, just as here's an example of what Frederick does, which I thought, and I sent the language from Frederick to our lawyers too, and they were like, looks good enough to where, it's worth talking about, but it's, again, it's something that any, but also make sure you guys understand the process of, it would have to go to mayor and town council. They would be the ones that ultimately would have to approve it, and there are steps involved with that. So we can certainly get it added to an upcoming agenda for them, just as a point of discussion, before we get too far into it, and then also keep it on our future agendas, depending on how mayor and town council discussion goes. We can continue the discussion here and sort of.
Well, let us know, because I wouldn't mind attending that. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'm not sure when the next. What's the next? We just had one on Monday, right? So it's 2 weeks. So I'll have to talk to Joe tomorrow to see if we can get it on the next agenda, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
But yeah, get it on their agenda for a.
Anything else this evening before we motion to adjourn?
I had a couple quick town updates, but nothing too pressing. The only one I'll mention then, since we've already been here for a while, is we did just get facade improvement projects. Every couple of years we have the facade improvement grant that the town gets to help maintain historic buildings in the historic district. So we got all those applications in. So once those applications for the grants get approved, then the projects will come to you guys to make sure that the projects are being done in a way that's consistent with the guidelines.
Quick question on that.
Yes.
Just for the future, it obviously wouldn't be able to happen this time around. Might it be a better idea for them to come here first before they spend their time applying for the grant or the application, if it's not something that would work?
Yeah, so
I don't know the answer.
we've done it this way in the past. So just quick, the way it works is the town applies for the grant. We get the grant money. So the money's there, and then so we make sure that the grant's there, and then we ask property owners, do you have projects? Basically that would
That makes
comply
sense.
with this.
I thought it was them individually.
No. So we apply for a chunk of money, and then we distribute. It's a matching fund, so they, we will match up to a certain amount of money that they put in. So we found that this way has worked in the past, and no one's had issues with it, since we're the ones holding all the money and then kind of divvying it out.
How much money's in the kitty?
So this year we got $125,000, which is a lot more than we've gotten in the past. In the past, it's only been $50,000. So we got some applications for some pretty big projects. So we're gonna review those just in relationship to the guidelines for the actual grant, and then once we have a list of approved projects that work with the grant requirements, then we'll bring them to you guys to make sure that they also comply with HDC requirements.
Taking down aluminum siding on a Springfield house, maybe?
They didn't apply, so this only applies to commercial buildings.
This guy.
Yeah, this only applies to commercial buildings, unfortunately.
I figured on the main.
Yeah,
Yep.
it used to apply to residential buildings as well, but 3 years ago, they took that away, so it's commercial only now, unfortunately, so.
You have a daycare running at commercial, isn't it?
Huh?
You have a daycare running out of your commercial, isn't it?
Yeah, there you go. But that was the main thing I had, so I won't keep you guys any longer.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn? You guys had enough?
Make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor, or second? Aye. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Too bad, you're leaving.
Good work, team.